Captain Eli Wallace stood at the helm of the spacecraft Liberty, his eyes fixed on the lush green landscape of Cytheria unfolding below them. The planet, with its swirling blue clouds and sprawling forests, had long been a point of curiosity in the galactic community. Rumors of its inhabitants' advanced technology and unique culture had reached far and wide, sparking interest among humans. As the Liberty gently touched down on the soft, grassy plains just outside Cytheria's capital city, the anticipation among the crew was palpable. They had traveled across galaxies, but nothing had prepared them for the customs of this alien world. The ship's doors opened slowly, releasing a hiss of pressurized air. Captain Wallace stepped out first, flanked by his second-in-command, Lieutenant Jenna Marquez. They were greeted by the sight of a small delegation approaching from the city. The delegates were all female, wearing dresses of vibrant colors that flowed behind them as they moved with grace and confidence. Each dress shimmered under the twin suns of Cytheria, adorned with intricate patterns and what appeared to be tiny, glinting jewels. As the distance between them closed, Captain Wallace straightened his uniform and cleared his throat, preparing to greet their hosts with the dignity and respect that befit such an occasion. However, what happened next took him and his crew by surprise. Without a word, as they stopped a few paces away from the humans, each Cytherian lifted her dress, revealing not just their legs but elaborate, jewel-like body art that sparkled brilliantly. This was their greeting. The crew of the Liberty exchanged awkward glances, unsure of how to respond. Captain Wallace, ever the diplomat, managed a cautious smile. "We come in peace and friendship," he said, speaking slowly to ensure his words were understood. One of the Cytherians, who wore a headdress indicating her status as leader, stepped forward. "Welcome, travelers from Earth," she said in accented but clear English. "I am Chief Elira. We greet you in the traditional Cytherian way, by revealing our mirrors of the soul, what you see as jewels on our skin. It is a sign of trust and openness." Elira's explanation helped ease some of the tension, and Captain Wallace nodded in appreciation. "Thank you, Chief Elira. We are honored by your welcome," he replied, his crew following his lead by nodding and smiling, though still visibly bewildered. The Cytherian delegates lowered their dresses, and the formal introductions began. Each crew member stepped forward to shake hands, or the Cytherian equivalent, with Elira and her companions. The Cytherians, for their part, seemed amused by the humans' initial reactions, but pleased with the polite exchange. Chief Elira invited the human guests to follow her to the city where a banquet and a council meeting awaited them. As they walked, the landscape revealed more of its beauty. The architecture was a seamless blend of natural elements and advanced technology, with buildings that seemed to grow out of the ground itself. Lieutenant Marquez, who had been quiet during the greeting, leaned closer to Captain Wallace. "Sir, that was unexpected," she whispered. "It certainly was," Wallace agreed, his eyes scanning the environment. "But remember, Jenna, every part of this mission is a learning opportunity. Let's keep an open mind." The path led to a large structure at the center of the city, which Elira explained was the council hall. Its walls were covered in a luminous vine that pulsed softly, lighting their way as the evening set in. As they entered the hall, Captain Wallace took a deep breath, bracing himself for the cultural exchanges to come. The upcoming dinner and meeting would be crucial in setting the tone for their relations with the Cytherians. He reminded himself and his crew to respect their customs, no matter how unusual they might seem. The first part of their mission on Cytheria had been full of surprises, but Captain Wallace felt a stirring of excitement. This was what space exploration was all about, discovering the unknown and learning from it. As they approached the grand doors of the council hall, he knew they were stepping into a new chapter of human-alien relations, misunderstandings, and cultural exchange. Inside the Grand Council Hall of Cytheria, Captain Eli Wallace and his crew were ushered into a room that seemed to blend nature and technology in ways they had never seen. The ceiling mimicked the night sky of Cytheria, complete with twinkling stars and moving clouds, creating a calm and majestic atmosphere. Long tables were set with a variety of foods that looked both enticing and somewhat intimidating due to their unfamiliar forms and colors. Chief Elira took her place at the head of the table, inviting Captain Wallace and Lieutenant Jenna Marquez to sit on either side of her. The rest of the crew found seats among the Exitherian delegates. The hum of conversation filled the air, with the Exitherians speaking softly in their melodious language, which sounded like a mix of chimes and whispers. As the meal began, dishes were passed around, and Captain Wallace observed his crew trying to navigate the etiquette of this alien feast. One dish, in particular, seemed to be a steamed vegetable that shimmered with a metallic sheen. When Lieutenant Marquez took a bite, she inadvertently made a face, not expecting the texture to be so rubbery. Chief Elira noticed and laughed heartily. "It takes some getting used to," she said, her voice warm and friendly. "It's a delicacy here, favored for its nutritional value and unique flavor." Lieutenant Marquez, recovering her composure, smiled and nodded. "It's very interesting," she managed to say, choosing her words carefully. "Thank you for sharing it with us." As the meal continued, Captain Wallace took the opportunity to initiate a dialogue about potential alliances and trade agreements. However, every so often, a misunderstanding over cultural norms would pause the conversation. At one point, a crew member complimented a Exitherian delegate on her dress, not realizing that discussing personal attire was considered too intimate a topic for such an occasion. The delegate blushed deeply, her skin turning a darker shade of blue, and the table fell silent. Captain Wallace quickly intervened, apologizing for the misunderstanding. "We are still learning your customs," he explained. "Please forgive our mistakes." Chief Elira nodded, her expression turning serious. "It is understood," she replied. "We appreciate your efforts to understand our ways. Let us use this time to learn from each other." After the meal, the crew was invited to attend a cultural presentation in the hall next door. The room was circular, with seats rising in tiers around a central stage. The lights dimmed and holograms sprang to life, depicting scenes of Exitherian history and culture. The holograms showed the evolution of their society, their technological advancements, and their spiritual beliefs, which were deeply intertwined with their daily practices. Lieutenant Marquez was particularly fascinated by the holograms. She took notes vigorously, whispering occasionally to Captain Wallace about ideas for fostering deeper connections based on shared values like peace and scientific curiosity. However, another faux pas occurred when a crew member, trying to engage with a holographic figure, reached out to touch it, causing the image to flicker and momentarily disappear. The surrounding Cytherians gasped, and once again, Captain Wallace had to smooth over the incident, explaining it as an innocent mistake born of curiosity. As the evening drew to a close, Chief Elira stood and addressed everyone. "Today has been full of learning and some surprises," she said with a gentle smile. "We see that you come with open hearts, even if our ways are strange to you. Let us look forward to a tomorrow of understanding and friendship." Walking back to their quarters in the city, the crew discussed the day's events among themselves. Lieutenant Marquez was optimistic. "Despite the bumps, I think we're making progress," she said. "They seem to genuinely appreciate our efforts to connect." Captain Wallace agreed but knew they had much to learn. "Tomorrow, we'll continue to show our respect and willingness to understand," he said, looking up at the Exitherian moons shining brightly in the sky. "That's the key to diplomacy, patience, and respect." As they retired for the night, the thoughts of all were on the days ahead. They were beginning to realize that in the universe's vast expanse, diplomacy was not just about treaties and trade, but about building bridges between vastly different beings, one misunderstood custom at a time. Deepening understanding and adventure. The next morning greeted Captain Eli Wallace and his crew with a sky painted in brilliant shades of pink and orange, signaling another day of exploration and learning on Exithera. Today, they were scheduled to tour the capital city's most significant sites, a prospect that excited everyone, especially after the previous evening's cultural presentations. Chief Elira arrived promptly to escort the crew personally. Her presence was reassuring, a sign of the importance that Exetherians placed on this visit. The tour started at the city's center of science and innovation, a sprawling complex of buildings designed to harmonize with the natural environment. The structures were built around existing trees and water features, incorporating them into their architecture. This is where we combine our respect for nature with our technological advances, Elira explained as they walked through a laboratory filled with plants that interacted with various devices. We believe technology should enhance nature, not disrupt it. The crew was shown devices that controlled climate, enhanced crop growth, and even monitored planetary health. The Exetherians had developed technology that seemed magical but was grounded in deep ecological respect. As the tour continued, Elira led them to a museum dedicated to Exetherian history. Inside, holograms not only displayed events, but also emitted scents and sounds, creating an immersive experience. One exhibit detailed the ancient ritual that inspired their greeting custom. It began centuries ago, Elira narrated, observing the crew's rapt attention. Our ancestors believed that revealing the skin under one's garment was a gesture of ultimate trust and openness. It has evolved, but the essence remains. We greet with openness, to show we hide nothing. Captain Wallace nodded, finally understanding the profound meaning behind what had initially seemed an odd custom. The crew listened intently, gaining a new appreciation for the complexities of Scytherian social norms. The tour took a more interactive turn when they visited a cultural workshop, where they could try their hands at traditional Scytherian crafts. They wove fabric using techniques that had been passed down for generations, each weave reflecting a story or a piece of Scytherian lore. Lieutenant Marquez, ever eager, attempted to replicate one of the patterns shown to them. Her attempts were clumsy at first, but with gentle guidance from a Scytherian artisan, she began to grasp the technique. Her successful final attempt drew praise from the locals, and her proud smile was mirrored by Captain Wallace's approving nod. The afternoon was spent at the Planetary Gardens, an expansive park that represented every ecosystem on Cytheria. Elira explained that each section of the garden was cared for by a community that mirrored those ecosystems in their daily lives and customs. As much as we advance, we never forget our connection to our planet, she said, leading them down a path lined with flowering vines. These gardens remind us where we come from and what we must protect. It was here, amidst the lush greenery and tranquil sounds of nature, that Captain Wallace felt a deeper bond forming, not just with the Exetherians but with their world. He saw his crew, usually so focused on their missions, relax and marvel at the beauty around them. This connection, he realized, was what true diplomacy looked like. Beyond agreements and alliances, it was about shared experiences and mutual respect. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the gardens, Elira gathered everyone at a viewing platform overlooking the city. The skyline, with its blend of natural and constructed elements, was a testament to Cytherian philosophy and ingenuity. Today, you have seen parts of our world, but more than that, you have touched the spirit of Cytheria, Elira said, her voice soft yet carrying in the quiet evening air. We hope that in understanding our customs and our love for our planet, you see the sincerity of our friendship. Captain Wallace stepped forward, extending his hand to Elira. We are more than grateful, Chief Elira. Today has not just been about seeing your world, but feeling it. We are honored to share this experience with you. The Exetherians and humans shook hands, but this time, the gesture held deeper meaning. It was an acknowledgement of the day's shared experiences and the barriers they had overcome through understanding and respect. That night, as the crew discussed the day's events back on the Liberty, there was a unanimous feeling of accomplishment and anticipation for the days ahead. They had not only learned about Cytherian customs and history, but had also experienced the profound connection between the Cytherians and their world, a lesson they would carry with them long after their mission ended. complications, and resolution. The following day dawned with an air of optimism aboard the Liberty. Captain Eli Wallace and his crew were scheduled to attend workshops that would delve deeper into the applications of Scytherian technology and perhaps even set the groundwork for future collaborations. However, cultural differences can be a fertile ground for misunderstandings, and despite the previous day's success, complications were never far away. The first workshop of the day focused on energy conservation technology, a field in which Scytheria was a known leader. As the Scytherian experts demonstrated their sophisticated systems, which involved a complex interaction of natural elements and advanced tech, the crew listened intently. It was during these discussions that an unintentional blunder occurred. Lieutenant Marquez, ever curious, questioned the feasibility of applying such technology on Earth, where such symbiotic relationships between technology and nature were not yet the norm. Her question, meant to be purely technical, was misinterpreted by the Scytherians as skepticism about their methods' validity and efficacy. A murmur rippled through the room, and the atmosphere tensed noticeably. The lead Scytherian presenter, whose pride in their advancements was evident, responded with a touch of defensiveness. Our systems are designed in harmony with our world. Perhaps it is difficult to understand for a culture that often prioritizes technology over nature. Realizing the misunderstanding, Captain Wallace stepped in swiftly. Lieutenant Marquez's questions come from a place of admiration and a desire to learn, not doubt. He clarified earnestly, "We are here to understand and hopefully integrate your respect for nature with our technology." Chief Ilera, who had been observing the exchange, nodded in understanding. "It is easy to misinterpret when our worlds are so different," she conceded. "Let us use this as a learning opportunity rather than a point of contention." The rest of the session was spent exploring how Earth's current technology could be adapted and improved by Scytherian principles, turning the earlier tension into a productive dialogue. The incident, though small, underscored the delicate nature of intercultural interactions, where words could easily be misconstrued. In the afternoon, the crew was invited to participate in a traditional Scytherian ceremony intended to celebrate the unity of species. It was a beautiful event, held in an open field under the light of Cytheria's twin suns. Each crew member was paired with a Scytherian partner, meant to symbolize the bridging of two cultures. During the ceremony, each pair was supposed to exchange tokens of their worlds. This exchange was symbolic, representing mutual respect and acceptance. Unfortunately, another misunderstanding threatened to disrupt the peace. Ensign Rodriguez, one of the younger crew members, accidentally dropped the delicate Scytherian token, crafted by a luminescent orb, which shattered upon hitting the ground. The silence that followed was fraught with tension. The Scytherians looked on, visibly upset by the destruction of a significant cultural artifact. Ensign Rodriguez's face turned pale as he stammered apologies. Quick to manage the situation, Captain Wallace again stepped forward. This was an accident, not a sign of disrespect, he assured the gathering, his tone respectful and sincere. Ensign Rodriguez regrets the mistake deeply. We ask for your understanding and forgiveness in this matter. Chief Ilera approached the distraught ensign, her expression softening. We know this was not intentional, she said gently. Forgiveness is also a part of understanding each other. Let us not let this accident overshadow the strides we have made towards friendship. Her gracious response helped to soothe the situation, and the ceremony concluded with a renewed commitment to understanding and forgiveness. The day's events had tested the crew's diplomacy skills to their limits, but they had also reinforced the importance of patience and clear communication in building a lasting relationship with the Scytherians. That evening, as the crew debriefed aboard the Liberty, Captain Wallace commended them on their handling of the day's challenges. Today, we were reminded that our journey is not just about sharing technology or exploring new worlds, he reflected. It's about the humility to learn from our mistakes and the courage to move forward together. The crew nodded in agreement, their respect for Scytherian culture deepened by the challenges they had faced and overcome. They understood that navigating this new relationship would require careful consideration of cultural sensitivities and a continuous effort to communicate clearly and respectfully. As they prepared for the next day, there was a collective sense of accomplishment and anticipation. Each member of the crew was more committed than ever to ensuring that their mission would be remembered not for the misunderstandings that had occurred, but for the mutual respect and friendship that had emerged from them. Celebration and farewell. The final day of the crew's visit to Cytherea arrived with a mixture of excitement and sadness. Today was not just another day of learning and exploration. It was a day of celebration and farewell. The Cytherians had organized a grand festival to honor the bonds that had been formed and the understanding that had grown between the two cultures. As the suns began their descent, casting a golden glow over the city, the festival grounds buzzed with activity. Decorations of vibrant colors floated in the air, and music filled the atmosphere, a harmonious blend of Cytherian melodies and some familiar tunes from Earth, specially included to make the crew feel at home. Captain Eli Wallace and his crew, dressed in their formal uniforms, were greeted warmly by Chief Elira and her council as they arrived at the festival. Tonight, we celebrate not just a farewell, but the beginning of a new friendship, Elira announced to the gathered crowd, her voice echoing with joy and warmth. The festival was a spectacle of lights, music, and dance. Cytherians and humans mingled freely, sharing stories and laughter. Food stalls lined the edges of the gathering, offering a mix of Cytherian delicacies and some Earth foods prepared by the ship's chef as a gesture of cultural exchange. One of the highlights of the evening was the dance performance. Cytherian dancers, dressed in flowing garments that glimmered under the lights, performed a traditional dance that depicted the history of their planet. The movements were graceful and mesmerizing, telling stories of harmony and resilience. After the performance, the dancers invited the crew to join in. Despite initial hesitations, Captain Wallace led his crew onto the dance floor. Following the steps as best they could, their efforts met with cheers and applause from the onlookers. As the evening progressed, Chief Elira took to the stage again, this time to present Captain Wallace with a gift, a sculpture made from Cytherian crystal, symbolizing clarity and mutual understanding. "Let this be a reminder of what we have shared and learned from each other," Elira said, her eyes sparkling with emotion. Captain Wallace accepted the gift, his voice steady but filled with emotion as he addressed the crowd. "We came to Cytherea as explorers and leave as friends. Your hospitality and openness have taught us much about your beautiful culture and about ourselves. We are grateful, and we look forward to the future, hopeful for what our continued friendship will bring." The night was not just about speeches and formalities, though. It was about making memories. Photographs were taken, capturing the smiles and closeness that had developed over the days. Laughter filled the air, mixing with the music to create a lively atmosphere. As the festival drew to a close, the crew gathered for one final event, a releasing of luminescent lanterns into the sky, that Cytherian tradition to symbolize sending good wishes and hopes into the universe. Each crew member, alongside their Cytherian friends, released a lantern, watching as they ascended into the night sky, their lights mingling with the stars. The farewell was bittersweet. As the crew made their way back to the Liberty, there were hugs and promises to return. Lieutenant Jenna Marquez, who had been particularly touched by the Cytherian culture, lingered a moment longer, sharing a final laugh with a group of Cytherian scientists she had bonded with. Back aboard the Liberty, Captain Wallace stood before his crew, his expression one of pride. "This mission has been about more than just diplomacy and exploration. It has been about building a bridge between two very different cultures. You have all handled yourselves with grace and respect, and for that, I am incredibly proud." As the Liberty prepared to depart, the crew took one last look at Cytherea, its lights a soft glow against the darkening sky. They were leaving behind a planet that had become more than just a point on a star map. It had become a friend. And as the engines hummed to life, Captain Wallace knew that this was not the end, but the beginning of a journey that would see humans and Cytherians continue to learn from and support each other in the vast, uncharted territories of the galaxy.